Welcome to Edenfold, where we delve into darkness every Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday night. If you enjoy a late night, or even daytime chill, then please like and subscribe for more unsettling tales like this. Now, lower the lights, get comfortable, and let the fold of darkness pull you in.
My family moved from India to the UK in the 1960s. I grew up knowing that part of our history the way most kids do, as background information, something you mention in school projects. What I didn't fully understand until I was older was that the apartment building they lived in before emigrating had a reputation. No one called it haunted outright. That word was never used dramatically. It was just acknowledged. There were things that happened there. One of the residents was an older man who owned a dog. Before he died, he used to throw a bone down the hallway for it to chase. My mom told me that after he passed away, people in the building would still hear it late at night, the distinct sound of something hard being thrown across the corridor floor. Not dropping, not rolling accidentally. Thrown. It would skid and echo in the hallway. But there was never a dog, never footsteps, no door opening, just the sound. At the back of the building there was a tree. More than one person claimed they saw a figure hanging there and swaying, hung by the neck, a man's body wearing a suit, but missing its head. Visible enough that different tenants described it similarly. The story that stayed with me most was something my nan said she saw when she was pregnant with her first child that apparently did not survive birth. I say apparently because that is what she was told by the doctors. She never saw the child again. She described this apparition very clearly and with great fear. A short figure, not childlike, just small. Its legs and feet were turned backward. She emphasized that detail. The feet were facing the wrong direction. Its hair stood straight up on its head, long and black, and its eyes had flames coming out of them. A witch is what she described it as, and she told me this story more than once. At the time, I had no idea what this thing could be. Years later, after she passed away, I read about something in South Asian folklore called a Pichal Peri, sometimes also referred to as a churel. It's described as a vengeful female spirit, often believed to be the ghost of a woman who died during pregnancy or childbirth. One of its defining traits in many stories is backward-turned feet. They're said to linger near trees, deserted areas, or attach themselves to families. When I read that description, it gave me goosebumps, because the backward feet were the one thing my nan never hesitated about. She had been specific of that detail. Eventually, my family left India. They started a new life here, and for a while, nothing followed. Or at least, nothing obvious. The house they moved into in the UK was an old Victorian townhouse. Large, high ceilings, long, narrow hallways, several bedrooms upstairs, kitchen and sitting rooms downstairs. The kind of house with creaking stairs and doors that don't quite close properly. For years, it was just a family home, until my mom and her 7 brothers decided to experiment. They made a homemade Ouija board, just cardboard with letters written on it, a drinking glass used as a planchette. They were teenagers, curious, probably bored. They asked typical questions. Is anyone here? Can you give us a sign? At first, the glass moved slightly under their fingers. They assumed one of them was pushing it without realizing. Then suddenly, the glass shot off the board, not tipped, not nudged. It flew sideways and smashed into the glass doors nearby. All of them insist to this day that none of them pushed it. After that night, things in the house changed. My mom told me about a morning when she woke up to a gentle voice telling her it was time to wake up. She said it wasn't frightening, it sounded kind. She felt fingers tapping lightly on her shoulder. She opened her eyes and saw a set of fingers there just briefly before they were gone. One of her brothers had a very different experience. He woke in the middle of the night, unable to move. He described intense pressure on his chest and a harsh voice telling him to get out. Another brother ran from his bedroom one night after seeing what he described as a shadow figure that chased him out of his bedroom and down the hallway. He ran and pounded on my nan's bedroom door until she let him in. All of them separately heard pots and pans rattling in the kitchen downstairs at night, not crashing violently, just the metallic shifting of cookware, as if someone was standing in the dark, shifting pans and mixing things. The siblings had laughed at the time, thinking one of the older family members was down there cooking in the middle of the night. My mom now realizes that it was a spirit, multiple kinds of spirits in that house. The activity wasn't constant, but it was consistent enough that they all remember it. And then, slowly, as they grew up and moved out, it stopped. By the time I was a child in that house, nothing dramatic ever happened. Me and my cousins used to scare each other and stuff, and that was about it. But I remember the atmosphere. Certain rooms felt occupied even when empty. In particular, the hallway upstairs near the 2 rooms at the back of the house always seemed inhabited. I never saw anything, never heard a voice, just the sense that something was present but was no longer able to make it move. I've always wondered if the Victorian house had its own history. Maybe it was haunted by the restless spirits of its previous occupants, or maybe something had attached itself to my family long before they left India, something that stayed dormant until it was acknowledged. And if that's true, whether that homemade Ouija board was less of a game and more of an invitation. Perhaps the collective presence of my nan, my mom, and her brothers attracted things. I still don't know what to believe, but I do know that multiple members of my family across 2 countries and decades apart describe things that overlap in ways that are difficult to dismiss. And every time I think about my nan describing those backward feet, I can't help but wondering if she knew exactly what it was that she had seen.
My name is Daniil. I'm posting this because I've kept it to myself for 3 years, and I don't think pretending it didn't happen is doing me any favors. My wife Hannah and I bought our first house in 2021. We'd been renting a 1-bedroom flat for almost 6 years while saving. She's a primary school teacher. I work in IT support, nothing glamorous. We just wanted a place that was ours. The house was a 1930s semi-detached on a quiet road, small front garden, long back garden, slightly overgrown. Structurally sound but outdated. We were proud of it. I remember standing in the empty living room after we got the keys and thinking, this is it. We're adults now. The first few weeks were normal. Then the noises started. At first, it was knocking. Not at the front door, not like someone trying to get in. It sounded internal. Short, deliberate taps, usually from somewhere downstairs when we were in bed. 3 knocks, then silence. I assumed it was expansion in the pipes. Old houses do that. I even said that out loud the first time Hannah asked if I'd heard it. It's just the heating, I told her. Except the heating wasn't on. A few nights later, it happened again. 3 knocks. Not loud, but clear, like knuckles against wood. I got up, checked the front door, checked the back door, nothing. No movement outside, no wind, no loose gate. After that, it became regular, always at night, always 3 knocks. Then came the talking. The first time, I genuinely thought Hannah was on the phone downstairs. I could hear a low murmur from the kitchen while I was in the living room, not loud enough to make out words, just the rhythm of someone speaking. I walked in to ask who she was talking to. The kitchen was empty. Hannah was upstairs in the shower. I could hear the water running. I stood there for a while waiting for it to start again. It didn't. When I told her later, she didn't laugh. She just said, I thought you were talking to someone yesterday." That was the first time we both felt unsettled. We started noticing other things. Cupboard doors open in the morning when we were sure we'd shut them. The back door unlocked once. I know I liked it because I checked it twice before bed. One night, around 2 a.m., there was a knock on our bedroom door. Not downstairs, our bedroom door. 3 clear raps. Hannah gripped my arm so hard it hurt. I said, "Who is it?" automatically, which sounds ridiculous now. Nothing answered. I opened the door immediately. The landing was empty. The house was quiet in that heavy way it gets at night, where even the fridge feels distant. After that, Hannah started sleeping with the bedside lamp on. I tried to stay logical. Old house, settling, drafts, stress. We'd just taken on a mortgage. Maybe we were on edge. But then it escalated. One evening we were watching TV when we heard someone say hello. Clear as anything, from the hallway. Not muffled, not distorted, a normal voice. I muted the TV and we both just stared toward the doorway. "Did you just..." she started. "Yes." I walked into the hallway. Empty. But I had this overwhelming awareness that something had been standing just out of sight, not moving, just there. That night, the knocking didn't come in 3s. It came in 6s. By spring, we were both exhausted. The activity wasn't constant, but it was frequent enough that neither of us felt settled. The talking happened more often, always out of sight, always in another room. Once, Hannah heard whispering right beside her while she was washing dishes. She thought I'd come up behind her. I was at work. She didn't tell me until I got home because she didn't want to sound irrational. I started hearing footsteps in the garden at night, slow pacing along the fence line. We installed a motion light. It never came on. One Saturday morning, I found muddy footprints on the kitchen tiles, bare footprints, larger than mine. They stopped halfway across the floor. That was the point I stopped trying to explain it. We decided to focus on something practical, the garden. It had been overgrown since we moved in, thick shrubs, uneven ground, patches that sunk slightly when you stepped on them. We joked about sorting it eventually. Eventually became a distraction. We hired a landscaping company to level it and lay turf. The men arrived early. By mid-morning, one of them knocked on the door. His expression was wrong. He asked if we'd done any digging back there before. We hadn't. He said they'd hit something solid. At first, they thought it was large stones. Then one of them uncovered what looked like part of a ribcage. I remember Hannah sitting down without saying anything. The police came. The garden became tape and tense and quiet conversations. They found not one set of remains, 3, full adult skeletons, all buried at different depths, all beneath the section of garden that always felt slightly uneven. We later learned the house was owned in the 1970s by a man who lived alone. There had been complaints back then, noise disturbances, arguments, but nothing ever proven. He died in prison years later for an unrelated violent offense. The investigation reopened old missing persons cases. We never asked for full details. We didn't need them. After the remains were removed, the house was silent for 2 nights. Completely silent. No knocks, no voices, no footsteps. On the 3rd night, there was one final sound. 3 knocks. Not downstairs, not on the bedroom door, from beneath the floorboards, directly under our bed. Slow, measured, close enough that I felt the vibration through the mattress. Hannah started crying immediately. I didn't say anything. I didn't check. The next morning, we contacted an estate agent. We disclosed everything legally required. The house sold at a loss. We didn't argue. We left most of the furniture behind. We've been renting ever since. I hate to think of why the final knocks were coming from under the floorboards. Were there remains under there too? And even now, late at night, I still wake up expecting to hear it. 3 knocks. I don't know if whatever was in that garden was trying to get out, or if digging it up was the worst thing we could have done. I just know the house felt occupied long before we understood why, and I'll never ignore knocking inside of my home again.